Hello and welcome to this new episode of the Astroholic Live. I'm Dr. Alfredo Carpinetti.
And I am pending Viva, almost Dr. Luís Costa da Silva.
And our guest tonight is...
Not Dr. Sheldon Goodman, although that may change in years to come.
Well, good luck with that.
Yeah.
And it's not about your capacity, it's
Yeah, it's
about
like-
PhDs in general.
Do not recommend, but you do you.
It's something that we might want to revisit like a couple of years down the line,
Yeah.
how you feel about it. Because I think I felt the same just after my PhD. It's like, never again, I'll just... But I love having a PhD. I feel that I did accomplish something. But so, actually, important news.
Yeah, I've submitted my thesis, so I am almost a doctor. Thank you. Yeah, a bit tired, but ready to have a good show tonight.
Wonderful. I decided that this theme, this episode of the Astroholic Live had a theme, which sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, sometimes is like, oh, we're not organized enough to have a theme. And so a theme that would be quite interesting is time. And that's sort of what we're going to talk tonight. And it's LGBT History Month, so
That's true, yeah.
it's important discussing time and history and everything. And I think we can start with Sheldon telling a little bit more about what he does and...
Who are you, Sheldon?
Who am I?
Yeah.
Yes.
Who am I?
Introduce yourself.
So I am Sheldon Goodman. I'm known by many names. One is Cemetery Bloke, Cemetery Guy, and I run a blog about cemeteries, which I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, what? Is there nothing better to do with your time? No. I have the idea that they're outdoor museums, and they're essentially libraries of people, and therefore I think that makes them amazingly interesting places, not only just to art in terms of sculpture that you find in them, but they're essentially an index of the people who have gone before us. So my remit and my job, so to speak, is to try and bring their stories to life a little bit. So I run a weekly blog, which has grown into tours, talks and lectures, and it's just basically me walking around a graveyard with my trusty umbrella, wearing very nice clothes, just trying to bring the dead back to life, to put it basically. So that's basically it.
And this is London-based.
It's London, but sometimes I do venture out. I
Okay.
went to Washington DC last year, where these cemeteries are massive, and I nearly fried like an egg on the sidewalk. And yeah, just wherever. But yeah, mainly London because I'm London-based.
Yeah.
So
That's cool.
so it's nice, it's different. Yeah, and it makes people think because they're not spooky places at all. They are interesting places. Yeah, so.
Okay. So that's very, very interesting. And I'd say, how about you tell us about... oh, actually, no, and we told that this can start us on the theme
Right.
of tonight.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you about this research that came out very recently towards the end of January. It's not necessarily about time, but it's kind of related to it. So do you know when scents and smells can evoke memories on people or can spark romantic attraction or sexual attraction? These things are kind of well established in research, but one of the things that has never been further studied or studied in detail is how smell can or scents can impact the way we deal with stress. So there's this study done recently with heterosexual women and their counterparts, their partners, in which they were randomly given a T-shirt that had been worn by someone, and there were three possible T-shirts you could get: one that was worn by your partner, one that was worn by a stranger, and one that was not worn at all. So the participants people wearing the shirts obviously could not wear any deodorant and could not wear any scent or eat any spicy odor-rich food like Korean food, so that would not work for me. And they had to wear that for 24 hours, and then the T-shirts would be assigned randomly to the females, whilst they had to do a stress test, which involved a maths quiz and a fake job interview. And what the researchers found out is that because they would smell those T-shirts, and they found out that the scent of your significant other reduces your perceived stress levels, but also your cortisol levels that was assessed continuously on their saliva whilst they were doing the stress test. And on the flip side, if they were smelling a stranger's t-shirt, the perceived stress would increase, and also the cortisol levels would increase. So this was measured for the first time, the impact of scents and smells and odors in your stress levels, because it is well researched that, and it's also anecdotal, that when your partner's away, you sleep on that side of the bed, or you like wearing your partner's shirt to remind yourself of your significant other, but it has never been established a relationship with stress levels or how you would cope with. So so if you have something really difficult, stress-inducing to do, ask your partner to wear a t-shirt for 24 hours and then bring it on a bag and smell it before you take that exam.
I'm going to really enjoy your Viva.
Yeah, it's good.
No, it's just...
It's already underway. It's going to be...
Graham that he hasn't showered in 2 days, just hanging around you.
It's going to bring in a Ziploc bag. It's like, tell the examiners, just give me a second. Yeah.
Quivering wreck, and then just like,
Yeah, but it's been just published, and I will obviously leave the link.
Wonderful, yes. I'll add the link to the blog post that I'll do with the video.
Yeah.
So
it's a very interesting paper, and it's good to see finally some connections that are not anecdotal and they're actually empirically demonstrated, particularly with stress and scents, which I find at least pretty interesting.
I think is definitely interesting. I'm having some problem with Twitter on my iPad, so if you're tweeting us, trying to tweet...
have a look at Cemetery Club, because I'm glued to this thing, so if you're watching, please do feel free. I've got that in my own personal email, which you'll find from the
or Luís, or use the hashtag the Astroholic Live. Somebody will get in touch. Shall I start making our cocktail for tonight?
Yes, because I'm dying for a drink.
Okay.
Great idea.
Not like I'm an alcoholic or anything, but
so, what we're having is a sidecar. So,
what is a sidecar, Alfredo? I'm intrigued to know.
It's a timeless beverage.
Timeless beverage, you'll say. Some would say old.
Yes.
I don't know.
I don't know what to say.
Somebody such a thing.
Somebody described it as old in the preparation for this episode. But it's it's a classic cocktail, and I thought that I do a lot of experimentation with the cocktails, and sometimes it's very successful. We have been doing a good run. Sometimes is not so successful. Likely you never experienced a bad cocktail here. So.
I don't think I have. No, I think they've all been really good.
Is there such a thing as a bad cocktail? In my sixth
long time viewer will remember the sangria suspension that turned out to be jelly.
Yeah.
What?
So it was supposed to be this was supposed to have the consistency of a slushy, and you can and you add the bits of the fruit and of the sangria.
Right.
Move in the
in this kind of viscous liquid, I guess.
Yes.
And how did it turn out?
It became solidified as jelly, like we had to eat the cocktail with a spoon. So we don't talk about that incident anymore.
Apparently we do. You always bring it up.
It's because
it was traumatic.
and it was traumatic. And
you need to sniff a t-shirt. You like.
And it's very I don't like to brag and talk about all my successful cocktails for all the other 17 episodes of the Astroholic. So I need to talk about my shame. My very public shame. So, the sidecar has cognac, triple sec, so you need a citrus liqueur. You can use triple sec, some people use Grand Marnier. Then you add simple syrup, and you have lemon juice. So it's 1 unit, half and half. And I have enough to make two.
Amazing.
If you boys are good.
Promises. Always a reward.
So, in the while I do that, how about you discuss what you brought about time?
Right. So, I mean, again, I'm not a scientist. I'm more of a historian. But the concept of time fascinates me because I'm a massive fan of Doctor Who. I mean, is that a good starting point for an interest?
That is definitely a good starting point.
And and I live and die Star Trek. particularly the time travel episodes, which I absolutely adore. But what is time? What is time? Now, like anyone, I started off with this quest by going onto Wikipedia. And I found two things which I struggle, and this is where you come in, to perhaps explain this to me, because I did try at least for 15 minutes to try and understand it, but then I thought, no, blow this, I'll have some shreddies. So A time and B time, the way that time is perceived. Now, this is ham-fisted, and I do apologise if there are any scientists watching today, how this works, but A time and B time. Now, B time, from what I am sure of, is that it's the kind of accepted model of time, and that time is an illusion, and that we are existing all in one thing? I'm probably wrong. Do shout me down on Twitter if I am wrong, I probably am. And then A time isn't that. But the concept was so confusing to me, I have no idea what the hell it was about.
I am confused a little bit on what you mean by A time and B time.
So it was a theory, I think, that came out in the early part of the 20th century, and I think it was a man who had 3 initials in his name, and
was he British?
He was British. He was British. Let me get my reference
Could
notes
it be
up.
Eddington?
It might have been Eddington. Let me just
So,
have a look. Hang on.
Eddington had he came up with the concept of what we now describe as the arrow of time.
The arrow of time. Okay.
Yeah, and so time has a very specific direction, and what we perceive is what we describe as psychological time. And you can see that sometimes time seems to go fast when you're having fun.
Yeah.
Or sometimes time seems to go very slow. So the question is the time that we measure with a clock the same as the time that passes in our mind? And we also know that our clocks depend on the frame of reference. If a clock is moving, it will move more slowly than a clock that is not. So, how is time something that is fixed, or in some way is there a universal time or there isn't? So, Einstein, for Newtonian mechanics, time and space are the set of the play. We are part of the play, but time and space are the sets. And in general relativity and special relativity, it's not true anymore. Space and time depend; they're part, or they're the players as well. But space-time itself is the set. And well, we're not sure if it's truly a set or not. And it depends because we don't know what time is itself. And that is $1 million question. Yeah. What is time? So, good thing for the sidecar is that you need to filter it. Obviously, there was ice in there, and ideally, you want to cool down also the martini glasses, but didn't have enough ice.
So we'll slum it, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
I'm sure it won't be a problem. Ooh, hello.
It's a lot more orange than I expected.
Wow, okay.
So, first time doing this. So, it's still an experiment somehow.
Nicely portioned out.
Give us a little bit more. Okay.
I always find that people who have siblings are really good at splitting things.
Whereas I'm an only child and I'm very happy at that.
Hey,
so,
cheers. Oh, maybe my Twitter is fixed. I see a notification. But cheers.
Chin chin.
Cheers.
Oh, I'm getting summer fruits with a hint of hollyhock. If you're ever familiar with Food and Drink, which is a very popular show in the in BBC in the early 90s, there was a lady called Gilly Goulden who would...
Foreign.
Yeah.
Oh, you've not lived! Oh, there was a very good show.
Dramatic.
No, it was for half an hour. It was great. Absolutely wonderful.
We had our own shows, which were also great.
You didn't have Gilly Goulden?
No, but we had other people.
I did see Oz Clarke in a Waitrose in Canary Wharf the other day, but that's completely got nothing to do with anything. So that's
all right. So you were saying about the theories of time,
which was by a gentleman by the name of John McTaggart Ellis McTaggart. His surname was so good he had it twice. Who was an idealist metaphysician.
Okay.
That's one SIP that's done that. Trinity College, Cambridge. He was exponent of philosophy of George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Hegel. Oh, right.
Very famous.
In the continent, we study philosophy.
Exactly.
We don't see cooking programs.
Exactly, that's what we do, and it's great.
But him.
Yeah.
So that's the guy who came up with.
This is the A series, B series. Sorry.
Right.
Two distinct modes in which all events can be ordered in time. It doesn't really say what the difference is. Again, this is fascinating to me because this is not a world I dabble in at all. So I'm actually quite intrigued by this. Hang on, there must be clearer ways. So the B theory of time, which seems to have more on it. So this was originally proposed in 1908, in which events are ordered via a tense A series or a tenseless B series, whatever the hell that means. Events, McTaggart observed, may be characterised in two distinct but related ways. On the one hand, they could be characterised as past, present or future, normally indicated in natural languages such as English by the verbal inflection of tenses or auxiliary or adverbial modifiers. Alternatively, events may be described as earlier than, simultaneous with, or later than others. Who is more at home in cemeteries rather than reading scientific theory. What on earth was that about?
So, we need to consider that there is, when we are trying to understand these fundamental quantities, before we realize just how complicated they were, when quantum mechanics was still a hotly debated topic on if it's real or if it's just our limitation, people really had no clue, and they could be a little bit more free on the interpretation. We can come up with a million different theories now, but we are very much stuck on we need to be able to somehow prove them. A lot of ideas from, for example, general relativity are actually from a German philosopher called Mach, and Einstein was really influenced by him. And you would consider, Einstein is just pure science. It's as science as gets. But when he formulated general relativity, it was all speculation. It was completely hypothetical. There were no tests until 4 years later. So I'm thinking that this A series, B series of time, which sounds fascinating, it was just we don't know what time is. We're gonna try to explain it like this, and probably the rise of the idea of the hour of time came because Eddington actually became famous because he was the first one to test general relativity with an eclipse in 1919, proving Einstein right for the first of many times, and he had this idea that time it's special. There was something in relativity that needed to come out of it. There was something that we were missing. There must be a reason and a way for time to be directional. As far as we can tell, there are very few laws of physics in which they demand time to have a direction. Which is just like, ooh, time travel. But mostly like, everything, for as much as I love to time travel, there is literally no physical mechanism yet to travel back in the past.
But let me pose a question to the both of you here, because this is something that fascinates me. If you, let's say in the instance that time travel was possible, and you're given one chance to time travel, where would you go?
How much can I do? Depends.
Yeah, it really depends.
Like, My favorite example is having a deterministic universe in which you can time travel in the past, but you cannot change anything.
Yeah, so you can't like kill Hitler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my argument is you should time travel and like steal Hitler's wallet or go to one of his first art exhibition
Yeah, and buy
just
something.
and just tell him how awful he is. Like, if you cannot change the course of history, are you morally obliged to be an asshole to the most horrible people in?
But then that was it. But then in that instance as well, as a horrible man as he was, if you were to change history in that way,
No, you're not changing history.
You're not changing.
This thing, history is always going to happen.
Yeah.
So the only thing you can do is just being rude to somebody who's horrible. Are you morally obliged to do that, or should you just go, I don't know, gallivanting with?
I don't know, because that kind of gets into the whole ethical question of the time traveling, whether you're morally allowed to change events, or like you said, being evil to someone who you know is going to commit atrocities a few years after that. I think I would particularly, and this to answer your question, I would particularly focus on something positive. So instead of going, as much as I would like to go back and stop Hitler from doing what he did, because we would not be able to, I would maybe meet someone that I would like to engage with. I don't know.
So there's two for me. There was two things I would do, and I'm kind of umming and ahhing. One would be I'd go forward in time to check that I didn't die alone. So I would. I would. No, again,
I was about to suggest going back in time and make out with Stradivari. But
no. Which is literally, I'd just poke my head around the door. If there's people there, fine. If not, I'd probably be Sparko anyway. I'd just hold my hand, I'd slip away and then go and get a Greggs. That would be it. The other thing were to go back in time and say to Marilyn Manson, for goodness sake, stop after Golden Age of Grotesque. Those albums that you released afterwards were rubbish. Don't bother. Seriously, go into acting, go into watercolours, do whatever the hell you want, but do not release those three.
That.
I am very passionate because he needed creative control. Sorry, this is not science related at all, but it's, if I had two instances, that was what I would personally do.
Okay.
Interesting. So Lucy, I was going for the more like going and make out with Antonio Stradivari, but just because I would assume that he's really good with his hands. Since we're going for a more serious conversation, this is lighthearted. I think then I would probably. I think I would go and meet Francis Bacon.
Okay.
To find out if he was inclined to have sex with men. So there is a lot of...
Would you volunteer yourself? If you say, hello Francis, how you doing? Not that I'm saying you're Cockney, for example, but I mean, would you just like go up and say, just do it for research
you see, it's not about the sex, it's about the fact that he's the founder, not the founder of the scientific method, but he put the scientific method into our career in philosophy. And having him as a role model that I can shove in every single homophobe that complains about stuff, Pride in STEM, and I can get, the guy that pretty much invented science was gay. That would be fun.
That would be fun.
And it is my argument that we need more role models. If I were to travel into the future, I think I want to travel really far into the future when we're traveling the galaxies. I don't think I want to just travel the end of my life, which I don't want to end it because we have one life, so why would I want to end it?
Everything has its time and everything dies. To quote the Ninth Doctor, that's a personal maxim of mine.
Yes, I always need more time to put the 10th Doctor. Because I could do so much more. No, I think I would...
Those are good options, I think.
I think I would want to go far into the future. I like to think that for as much as we see so many examples of regression in politics and in attitudes, there's also a lot of progress that we tend not to see between the noise of the everything that is bad at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel
Yeah.
it's not a scientific approach, but I have a feeling that humanity can still progress. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, and I'd like to see it.
I think I would go into the past and I'll do two things. First option, I would hear Bach play live.
Ooh.
Second option, I would go and have an appointment with Freud.
Ah.
But I would have to learn German. I mean, you did speak English, but I feel it would flow better if it was in German. So I would do those things.
I have a question.
Okay.
Are you going to have an appointment with Freud to, like, really have as a interest point of view how he would see you, or just to mess with him?
Good point. Well,
Because I would go there and like, I keep having this dream about a giant missile, and it's just like very long and very hard. I don't know what it means.
Or I could go before he came up with most of the psychoanalytical theory and give him even more clues for him to develop the theory. So then I would be quoted on his books forever and ever.
That is the most complicated way to get a citation. But actually, maybe not, but it's like high on the.
I could be the mustached patient on all of the. Right?
That's a novel. That's a novel.
That sounds very appealing, is it?
I
like
that.
time traveling, psychoanalysis.
Yeah. I find that would be my option. The other one would be to listen to Bach play live, because I think that would be insane. I have no interest in going to the future, actually.
Really?
Yeah. I'm a smoker, so there's a chance I'd be dead.
And people have mocked me for wanting to be with myself when I died. I mean, for goodness sake. Good grief.
No judgment.
It's a very personal matter. You're allowed to choose whatever.
All right. So I think it's my time to chat a little bit, and I wanted to bring time on 2 points. I didn't want to go too theoretical, but I'm glad that you brought it up.
Yeah, go on.
I wanted to talk about the shortest amount of time that humans have ever measured.
Oh, okay.
And the longest amount of time that our theory allows us to work out, and then just freak you out a bit. So, shortest amount of time is 850 zeptoseconds, which is 10 to the minus 21 seconds.
A zeptosecond?
Yes.
Wow.
You're introducing me to all kinds of standard measurements I didn't even know existed.
So that is 850 trillion billionth of a second, or billion trillion, so you can arrange them, and is, I think, if I remember correctly, the shortest that human can perceive. It's about things that have an interval about 50 milliseconds. It's something quite short. I keep confusing them between pigeon, because pigeon is much better than us at perceiving them.
We're not that great, actually.
Yeah, so it's something that is a few billions time shorter than anything the human can perceive. But we can measure it. So it's amazing. It's not even the shortest theoretical time interval that we think it exists.
How much shorter can you go, though?
We think about another 1 trillion times shorter.
Oh, wow, okay.
We think.
So is there anything that exists in its, something like might exist for that time frame alone that we can measure?
That's how they did it, and it's quite cool. And we think that you can, the shorter you go on your time scale. So you might have heard the uncertainty principle, which is you cannot measure something, the position and the momentum of a particle, for example. But the uncertainty principle can also be done with energy and time.
Right.
Oh.
So you can, if you have a virtual particle, so particle that just appear out of the vacuum of space-time and then disappear, if you have a short enough time frame, you can create quite heavy particle because you have a lot of energy.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
So it's quite fascinating, and we know that virtual particle becomes real particle, for example, at the edge of black holes. So it's something that is absolutely interesting. And now we move from the tiny instant of time to the pretty much age of the universe. We can sort of work out that for the next 100 billion years, the universe will continue to expand. There's still going to be stars up to that point, and that is 6 times more than the age of the universe today, or 20 times more than the age of the solar system.
So we've still got time then.
Plenty of time,
Fine,
but
for that.
with physics, you can go to a number that is a Google is 10 to the 100 years in the future.
Right.
And that's pretty much when we think that physics as we know will just crumble into nothing. And that is...
A happy thought.
Yeah, 1 with 100 zeros years in the future.
That's insane.
It's fascinating because up to that point, our physics, we don't know if everything is exactly correct because we don't know, understand dark energy exactly. Our theory of everything is still not there.
Yeah.
And so very much lacking even when you start patching things together. But our physics sort of gets there. And it's incredible that we have a tool that clearly can outlive us.
That is frightening.
Yes,
It's
it
amazing,
is.
but it's frightening at the same time.
It makes me feel weird.
Yeah, when I started looking into this, because it was for my vows at the wedding, they want to see when the universe will be destroyed and how much atoms of mine will be near atoms of Chris.
That is very delightful.
Yeah. Also, Kristen made a very, very poignant and touching vows, so I knew that I need to make it a little bit more sciencey and fun, because otherwise people would just like die of tears.
That's not a bad thing.
No, and sad is happy for deep people, but it's I wanted to have my science touch. But anyway, I started looking into stuff, and it was just like these huge number dates, and I was just like, even if I could download my consciousness into a robot that can survive for millions of years and then construct more you get to a point that you just like, even if I can, there is a point in which all of the universe just crumbles down, and it's terrifying, it's fascinating, and it just leaves you,
I'd like to see that.
maybe that's where we're going
in the future.
I'd like to see the last star as it goes out. That would be so poignant.
The last light in the universe.
The last light in the universe. That'd be so, yeah. And then what would you do afterwards? I suppose you have to use your iPhone, wouldn't you, to look around? But, I mean, that's just...
See, that makes me feel anxious.
Really?
Thinking about those things, yeah. Like the end of the universe and the end of everything. Because it is so hard for us as human beings to perceive or imagine the concept of nothingness, that we do struggle to, when it comes to that end, like what is going to be when everything is gone. It's nothing, but it is very difficult for us to think of that concept being so abstract. Like it is beyond our cognitive capacity to perceive and understand what that actually means. We have an idea, an approximation, but do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'd just love to be in the middle of it, but then I'm a bit of a weirdo anyway.
No, I think if I were to be turning to nothingness, I'd rather...
Well, if you're there, there's no nothingness. If you are there, there's...
Yeah, but after the last star, pretty much the universe falls apart, so just like... Hey, if I'm gonna fall apart with the rest of the universe, at least I want to be
That's true, yeah.
the last one to leave the party.
Go out with a bang.
Yes.
Yeah, I suppose.
So,
yeah.
orgies at the end of the universe.
Sounds good to me.
And you can check out our Astroholic Live about sex in space
That's
to
very
find
true.
out exactly how that is going to pan out. And talking about space, this flawless
Amazing.
we get into the big science story of the week that I decided that we are going to debate. And we're going to be sort of the devil's advocate for every position. And we're talking about Elon Musk and the
Cars in space.
Cars in space.
Not sex in space.
And it's the discussion is the modern space race, because we need to consider that space is not anymore what we grew up thinking about.
It's very again, from when you asked me to research it,
Yeah.
I had no idea. I was saying to these guys earlier before we started filming. I said I'd never heard of Elon Musk at all. I thought it was a sexual disorder, and I thought, okay, so who the hell is? I saw something about a car. I saw something about a car, and then like, there was like a planet Earth in the
happens in the back
background.
seat of a car.
Backseat was like, you know, and I thought, right, so who is this gentleman? What does he do? And you know, even from the very basic research that I did, this literally I think is a bit of a game changer, because whereas until now it's been governments and their various agencies leading the way, this has basically almost opened up the ballpark. So you know, millionaire space boys can now have a shot, and companies and so on.
Yeah, I don't think that's a good thing. See.
No. I mean, it's. I don't know.
So, I thought that I was going to. So, the plan was. I didn't even have to ask him. I was just like, "Oh, we're gonna talk about Elon Musk. I have an opinion." He had many opinions.
Yeah,
I
many
didn't
opinions.
even. But no, I was going to argue for the space stuff, but I think I can just moderate this debate. So, Luís, why do you think it's not a good thing?
Well, I have nothing against him personally, although he does sound like a bit of a jerk. But my problem is that I do think that space exploration and investment in that kind of area should be government regulated, because there should be an agency or an institution or a higher power, so to say, that will regulate.
Oops.
That's right.
Let's just do
I
something
don't know if you
regulators
guys,
making drinks.
Yes. Also, someone
Good
should
grief.
regulate Alfredo.
I'll disappear from the camera a second, and it's back.
I just feel like if any other capitalist entrepreneur decides to start sending rockets into the space, then we're going to have a big problem, you know.
Because I was reading how people were seeing it as a win-win situation for NASA. Because obviously NASA's not as funded as well funded as it used to be. So everyone's like saying, "Oh well, no, this is great for NASA because you know they can just jump in and join them with the party."
Yeah, but why doesn't he fund NASA? Like, he's not Tony Stark, you know. Like, he cannot just start doing these things on his own without being.
But do you see
It's,
him more? I think he could be more of a catalyst. I think so. People think, "Oh, hang on, if he can do it, flipping out, we better kind of get our asses in gear."
There are a lot of companies that are feeling doing that. So why is he not funding NASA? Because NASA needs to apply to a lot more regulation than companies have to. So
But that's quite scary.
it is.
Yeah.
I feel for the entire week I've been feeling in very much two minds. I feel that casting him as a hero of the space, the new space age, is wrong. Casting him as a villain is also wrong. Although there are some things that he does that I'm just like, Jesus Christ, it's 2018. There are I can put some links, but like stories about work he does at his companies and issue and the fact that the gender balance at his company is still 1970. Actually, no, that's not true because NASA had a fantastic gender balance during the space race.
I just feel like next thing is going to privatize space, and then Richard Branson is going to send like Virgin rockets.
The Virgin rocket has been trying to get up there for years and is still nowhere. Yeah, but the question is,
is it really?
Yeah, but it's never going to get to space. So the Virgin Galactic is going to get to 15 kilometers high.
Oh.
So
Because it's trying to get not to space, almost to space, so you experience microgravity, but it's something that it will then can be used for intercontinental flight, so you could get to Australia in 42 minutes.
Right.
Oh my god.
That is the plan.
What a tease. What a tease he is.
Yeah, but it's the fact that it's very complicated because. So actually, as the North Korean found out when they started their space race, that is my favorite story because you see that science is a collaboration. When you close your scientists from the rest of the world, they don't find out stuff that the Russian worked out at the beginning of the 20th century. So what North Korea did, they have rockets that can send missiles very, very far away. Pretty much everyone on the planet can be, apart from South America, can be reached by a North Korean rocket. And I'm like, we can get to space. It's only 100 kilometers high. So they shot up. The thing went to space and then came back straight down because the point to get into orbit, you don't have to just go up. You need to go very fast horizontally. Pretty much is you're trying to go so fast that you're constantly falling on Earth, but you're missing the planet.
Oh, okay.
So this is why people experience microgravity in space, not because there is no gravity. The gravity in the ISS is pretty much the same as gravity here, because it's literally 500 kilometers high, not that different. But they're constantly falling on Earth. Luckily, they're still missing it. Not for North Korean missile, which just went up
and then back down again.
And listen, that is the difficult part, is the fact that you need to have enough horizontal power to go horizontally. The question now is what Musk is doing. I feel that it has an importance because it's showing new ways to get into space, because he's obsessed with pretty much recycling. He's obsessed with making everything that goes up into space reusable.
Oh, okay.
And that is very good because he's developing the technology. And what we need to hope is that soon, and I think some of his old patent he made free for use for everyone.
Okay.
And this thing, I'm not saying, oh, you see, it's such a good guy. He isn't. At the same time, he's not like is such a bad villain.
Right.
I found especially a lot of people covering the car. The car is ridiculous. The car is absolutely ridiculous, and there is some point that maybe a scientific instrument would have been more worth it. But for 3 days, people were just talking about the car,
the
and I'm
is
just like,
you see people like him. You see him as an entrepreneur, and you can see in the Victorian times he was basically going Victorian over it. It was basically showmanship. And what a way to do it. And the fact that, there's like Easter eggs, like there's a little Hot Wheels car with a little mini spaceman on the desk, on the sideboard or whatever. He clearly knows how to kind of get people's attention, not mine. I didn't know who the hell he was, sexual disorder. But he intrigues me as a man, he intrigues me as a character. But one thing that I did read, and again, I don't have the figures right to hand, but they would give him the specifications of the rocket which they sent up. And apparently the rocket was, he could have put up about 3 different Tesla Roadsters for the amount of fuel and stuff that was on it, which leads me on to my next question. He's all about recycling, great, brilliant, but environmentally friendly, really? The whole thing isn't environmentally friendly. I mean, that's why just a given.
Governments need to get involved in that kind of thing, so that those things are regulated and done properly. Otherwise, like every other magnate is just going to start sending things into space.
Yeah. And then that kind of leads into the pollution up there. Like they're saying, there's bits of paint splatter and stuff, and all this kind of stuff, which has to be trapped. And other near Earth objects and all that kind of stuff. It's just like, well, actually, now the more I think about it, the more terrifying this truly is that there needs to be a central check as to what goes up and what comes down, like an airport, really. I mean, you don't have someone say, "Oh, I can build a plane. I'm going to go to Marbella today." It needs to be kind of
capitalism is dangerous. That's the point of this story. Don't do it.
No, I absolutely agree that we should have more regulation. And you see, some countries already started. Luxembourg has regulated who can mine asteroids. And how can you mine asteroids? Because technically, outer space is international waters. legally,
Oh.
outer space is international water, which is my favorite thing. So if you still, like for example, if there was a mutiny on the ISS and you're still in the ISS, you are a pirate.
That is pretty cool.
Also, you're stealing from the US, so I don't know if it's... Oh, I'm making a little bit...
So and another thing is jumping forward. So let's say in the future, all this is regulated, everything's fine. If we get to the instance where we are able to do interplanetary travel or exploration and all that kind of stuff, we do a total recall, all that nonsense. If we get there and there is a civilization or even a species there, how is that going to work?
Actually,
because historically, I mean, I use the example of the Aborigines, for example, the indigenous species and stuff. Historically, we're not well known for it's like, we come in peace, we're going to share the planet.
Historically, we're terrible.
We are
it's like
shocking.
it's.
Just don't send white people.
Luís has a point, and
true.
I don't think we can really argue against that point. I think we would need
They'll steal your spices and then just enslave you.
and put a flag. I think we would need a prime directive, so it's like we're doing with the tribes in the Amazon, which again.
It's not being done very well, though.
It's not been done very well.
When you see them wearing Reebok caps, you think, what the hell is going on?
Well, there's a
That
Yeah,
annoys
but
me.
there are some.
That annoys me.
But some of the with some of the tribes are aware that there are people beyond their borders. But what it's done is none of us can go and talk to them.
Yeah.
They can come and talk to us, trade with us, and everything.
Yeah.
It's extremely complicated, and I don't think I have the expertise for this, let alone with an interstellar civilization.
Yeah.
But I think we need to start thinking about it because.
Do we?
I think we do because I think
I think it would start a really interesting conversation about humanity.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not because, it's not like we could be on the verge or we could not be on the verge. We have no idea.
Yeah.
But I think it's important that we discuss as humanity, pretty much. Okay, what is
What have we learned from colonization?
Yes, what have we learned from
I-
colonialism?
the
Because
sooner-
it's like
Yeah.
we are terrible. And
the sooner we ask these questions, I think the better it's for when if the circumstance actually eventually arises. Because let's say we manage to go into Metabelis 3 or something, and we go to the planet, we find a fairly cognizant species there. When we there's all kinds of questions. Should we be there? Are we going to establish a base here? It's not our planet, but hello, here we are. It's just I think these are questions we need to.
It's true. They're planning to send a very tiny probe to Proxima Centauri. It's the Starshot breakthrough project, and it will take 25 years because we're going to be able to. It's such a tiny probe that we're going to be able to accelerate to 20% the speed of light.
Oh wow!
Let's imagine that we get there and the camera on the tiny probe is good enough to snap, and we have the idea of a civilization that it looks like they're about to enter, for lack of a better term, their industrial revolution or their Victorian era. They're on the verge of global communication.
Right.
Yep.
Should we contact them?
No, not at that stage. They need to find out for themselves.
Okay,
I'd say.
but is the thought then should we monitor them?
For what purpose?
To the fact that at some point we want to contact them.
Well, we can just wait until they're ready.
Yes, but how do we know?
Give them some space.
How do we know?
Okay.
No, but how do we know
Yeah.
if they're ready?
I mean, there's theories knocking around, with all these supposed UFO sightings. It's almost like aliens are just checking, oh right, hang on, there's a Roman emperor. He's just kind of given a member of the council one of his horses or something, whatever, and come back in 1,000 years. Oh, we just elected Trump.
He was born in my hometown. There's something in the water.
Yeah. Obviously.
And I don't know. It's just I think it would be a very interesting conversation to have.
Yeah, definitely. But then, like, would you be allocating time and resources onto a very unlikely, or not unlikely, but on a...
No, you can say it's
it is unlikely statistically,
but
right?
it's... I don't know, I think it's not about having the definite policy on what to do. I think it's about having a very broad conversation with a very intersectional and open conversation about what it is to be human, what it is to...
True.
I think this thing, the aspect that I find fascinating is not having a bullet point plan for what happens when we're meeting aliens. I think what it will be interesting is the conversation about humanity. I'm not religious, but I think it would be also very interesting to see what religious people think that should we discuss. Should we ask them if they believe in God? Should we approach? Is that a sensitive subject,
right?
Or is it not? Is it something like? I think it's among the between non-believers and among like should we be frank about our what we feel that are shortcoming as a species? Should we just send back into space and show off and see like this is what we can produce?
I mean, it's great.
Your call now to match it up.
That brings a good point, actually, because we are tendentially arrogant, and a lot of people would just assume that we as humans would be the evolved species rather than the others that we meet in this hypothetical scenario. Mm-hmm. So we also need to prepare for the fact that we might just be prehistorical in perspective.
But in the event that we did meet a civilization, I could argue that we're not, because I would be armed with a DVD of Food and Drink with Ginny Goulden.
Oh my god.
And I would go down to the planet. I'd say, darlings,
this is going to fix all your problems.
Flat screen telly. I've got a Food and Drink program to show you.
From a tiny island.
From a tiny island. A woman who every drop of wine tastes like hollyhocks and spring. Here we go. Knock yourself out. Make a creme brulee afterwards, and that would be it. Sheldon diplomacy. Yeah,
Sheldon diplomacy, and then we can teach them about Hegel and Bach in the background.
I think
I would be great as a first contact person. I would say, right, where's your nearest cemetery? Let's have a butcher's.
Yeah,
have a look.
If there is any alien that is watching this transmission
please
now
Sheldon.
or in the future,
I could pick you up. I mean, these are big enough. They get free views. With a slight modification, I could pick up signals from any galaxy.
So yes,
either way, Jodrell Bank, watch out.
Please get in touch with Sheldon. He would like to be the first contact. This
I make a lovely curry.
So he does.
Lovely curry.
Then I could say that we can have that as.
Bring a bottle. Come and never mind Trump and his associates. Come round to Sheldon's place, and I'll show you the wonders of planet Earth.
No, seriously, imagine if we had. Take me to your leader. I know that he makes a really good curry.
It does really good tours as well. It's made it great.
On that line, question for you as a physicist. Mm-hmm. If you had to select, because we were talking about sending Bach into space and all that, if you had to select 3 scientific discoveries or 3 pieces of scientific knowledge that you think are imperative to describe us as the human race, if you wanted to show another civilization of things that we know or that we're capable of, what would those 3 things be? I mean, 3 is an arbitrary number. You can say more than that.
No, it's...
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think it would be... 2 will be biology and 1 will be physics.
Right.
Simply because physics is a lot scarier and terrifying, and this is not a compliment to my subject.
It's true.
It's physics, while biology pretty much destroyed one of the Knights of the Apocalypse. We destroyed pestilence in the last 150 years. Pretty much physics gave death and war
all different meaning.
Terrifying weapons.
Yeah.
So I would say what I would send into space is the uncertainty principle, because it showed that we can understand the fundamental of quantum mechanics. Then I would send germ theory.
Yeah.
Because I think in any, like, you're stuck in time, germ theory. You're in the future, germ theory, it's evergreen. And the other thing would be DNA. Simply because we think that DNA and life as we know it is universal. Well, we don't know.
Okay.
So if you were to try and say, hey, this is how we work, this is how we came to be. Even, I love the definition, there's so many different definitions of what life is.
Mm-hmm.
And I love NASA's one, that is, life is an organism that, DNA-based organism that evolves following the rules of Darwinian evolution.
Okay.
And I found it that is such a universal definition and also extremely parochial, because this is what we know that works as life. Even viruses that they do evolve, but they're RNA based, we don't consider them alive, and there's a lot of debate if viruses are alive or not. And I found it that is so fascinating. That is a mixture of being really in the future,
that's cool,
and universal, but also very here and now. And
going back to that,
yes.
To understand the human mind, I would send everything we know about neuroscience, obviously, so that they would understand how our brains work.
Mm-hmm.
Then I would send them the 5-factor model of personality, because it is the best, in my opinion, way of conceptualizing it. And then I would send them the psychopathology of everyday life by Freud, because it's a different alternative approach to the way that we perceive daily life as humans.
That is very good.
And then I think they'd be enlightened.
I certainly think so. We only have a few minutes left, and I think Sheldon had a question.
Did you?
Did I? Oh, is this the question?
The question.
Right, here's a question for you. Again, as a non-scientist, and I revel in asking it. If a baby is conceived in space and is born in space, and then has to come back down to Earth, would it survive?
So the question is interesting because, first of all, we need to hope that they can survive in space. There's a lot more radiation in space than on Earth. This is why we usually send astronauts that are quite, in a way, advanced with age. Simply because it's a sincere risk. Cosmic rays are a lot more. There's a lot more cosmic ray up there. So a baby, let's assume that was conceived and was born there because of troubles that.
Couple of sidecars, that's what happened. A couple of sidecars.
No, rather than they're stuck in space and they cannot come down, because I think it would be unethical to have a baby in space. Simply because a child in space that is developing, it would probably have a lot less calcium in their bones. And it would,
would bone density come into this?
Yes.
Because that even happens with astronauts now, doesn't it?
Have very low, they lose so much calcium. It's like they get osteoporosis. So astronauts need to do so much. They do, I think, 2 hours, between 2 or 4 hours a day
machines,
of gym every day to maintain the muscle level. And even when they come down, it's extremely difficult.
Right.
So a child would be a severe disadvantage.
Not to mention unethical.
Oh, so what my scenario is like, when astronaut gets into space, she doesn't realize that she's pregnant, and she's stuck there, and nobody can go and rescue her, so need to have the baby there. And so...
I better rub her up then.
Yeah, don't be a capitalist, always wear a condom.
There we go.
The lesson from today.
That's beautiful.
Yes, that is a very, very... also, that
don't
is...
send cars into space.
Unless it's regulated.
Unless it's regulated by a government.
Okay, I can agree with that.
If Jeremy Corbyn signs off, you're good to go.
And if you want to have the first contact with our civilization, we're going to have curry at Sheldon, and we're going to listen to some Bach. I think we can all agree on that.
Bring it, ET.
So, thank you very much for joining us
Thank
with
you.
the Astroholic Live. I've been Dr. Alfredo Carpinetti.
I've been almost Dr. Luís Costa da Silva.
And I'm not Dr. Sheldon Goodman.
Have a good night.
Have a great one.